Good morning, everyone. It's Sarah Palmer from the Kensington Library. Linda, you are muted.
I'm muted. Hi. Technical difficulties this morning. I am Linda Yao from Northeast Regional Library.
And yes, in case you hadn't guessed it, we are going to talk about food manga. Linda, hit it.
Okay, hold on a minute. Oh gosh. So in terms of food manga, it's a huge premises of much of manga genre. That's one of my favorite genres to continuously read. I would buy food manga like, I don't know.
Potato
probably
chips.
tell you.
Pocky.
No, like Pocky and all that stuff. But the premises of a lot of these mangas are depictions of characters prepping or consuming foods and finding euphoria. It's like every single time I've finished reading manga types of this genre, I've always found I wondered if they could find something similar to consume myself.
Yes. No escaping.
So next, not escaping. Nope. Sorry. So this is Food Wars, and this is a series that brings food and competition into a new level in the style of Shonen Jump. Character development goes out of a way of bringing passion and all that. The male lead is Soma, and he wants to take over his father's restaurant. However, he gets enrolled into an elite culinary institution where every single week or every single day there's always food competition known as shogeki. And the thing is that is it?
Here it says shokugeki.
Shokugeki. And so Free Library does have the entire series, volume 1 to 36. You could either borrow it in print or you could borrow it via Overdrive. There's also an anime series.
Yes. One thing, there's the aspect of there's not just, they don't just show the experience of cooking, they also show the experience of eating. And occasionally, I have only read one volume, but I was really struck by the almost orgasmic reactions that some of the eaters had.
Did I tell you that the artist has his beginnings? He done hentai before, and so of course he's gonna.
I am not a bit surprised
to what it is, but yeah, I could only imagine. The manga is actually quite nice to look at.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the artistic quality just of the representation of that meat thing.
It doesn't exactly. I mean, you get to see the same situation when you see the god of wine. God of wine. Drops of God. Is the same exact situation.
Yeah, there's a sort of metaphorical experience that they have when they drink the wine, or in this case, eat the food. I believe somewhere on YouTube there is a the Kids React or Teens React series. It's I don't think it's through that particular channel, but there's people reacting. I think to to scenes from Food Wars where the characters are experiencing food like this.
Because the thing is that they're in that one episode. I saw that one episode. Yeah. They were actually, the chef created food that was similar to what you saw in Food Wars. And then they were asked to, can they not eat it or can they stay away from eating it? So it's kind of like, like the sensations of to eat or not to eat.
Yes, that is the question. Shall we move on? Yeah. Oh, here's a favorite of mine.
This is also a favorite of mine. So Delicious in Dungeons. Free Library does have this available as an ongoing title. It is up to volume 8. Is it 8?
Yeah, I was showing the wrong. I was showing it upside down. Yeah, here's volume 8.
That is a lot. That is the most recent volume that we have. It is an ongoing series. And this is a fantasy dungeon crawling series where there's a lot of dungeon explorations.
Mm-hmm.
So
Different bands of adventurers trying to make their way through the dungeon. I believe the goal is partly to gather riches.
There is, however, in the case of the main character, Laisu and his friends, they're actually trying to catch up to the dragon to prevent the dragon from digesting his sister.
The dragon has already eaten his sister, and so they're trying to rescue her while she is still intact. And hence the dragon poking his head out of the tunnel there. But in the meantime, they have to survive, and they do it by cooking up the fantasy wildlife they encounter in the dungeons, whether it's plant-like or animal-like or some combination of the two.
So it's like if they don't do that, then they would have to every single time go back outside to the to the market and then go back in. And if you have the physical copy of the book, right? But if you look at the back of the cover, the book itself, right? It shows you what animals or what food is going to be consumed in this volume itself.
Yeah. So
it's very dungeon crawly.
Yes. And there's a unicorn that they consume in this volume, a bicorn, a horse with two horns, a gargoyle. That doesn't sound like it would have great food. A changeling, which looks like a mushroom, and a big walking mushroom, which also is mushroom-like.
I know, but the thing is that the fact that they talk about how they prepare it and all that stuff, that
yes,
makes my mouth starts drooling.
Yeah, and then and they also show the nutritional balance created by each dish, which is pretty funny.
They also share like what you can do if you want to, even if there isn't the same ingredient, you can replace it with your own ingredients recipe kind of scenario.
Yep. So yes, it's a great story and also fun for the food.
Fun for the food. Okay.
Fun, come for the story, stay for the food.
Yes.
Okay, onward.
Onward and upward.
And here's one I don't know.
So this is Campfire Cooking in Another World with my Observe skill. What I really like about this one is that it's an ongoing series. Free Library doesn't currently carry it, but it is currently published in English by J Novel Club for both the light novel and the manga. The light novel, there's like 9 volumes, and then the manga has like 2 volumes. So the story premise is that Mukoda Tsuyoshi is a Japanese businessman. He finds himself in a fantasy world where he has to
Isekai.
He decides that he becomes a hero who goes on adventures. However, he also ends up deciding to becoming a merchant just so that he can sell off all the magical ingredients that his familiar finds. He actually ends up meeting a wolf who becomes his familiar. And so the thing is that one of Mukoda's skills is the fact that he still has access to his own world's shopping.
Hence the dressing catalog. Yeah, hence the sauce he's putting on there.
Yep. And the thing is that it's like an Amazon kind of a thing where he actually slips in a coin into the computer, like a tablet kind of a thing, and then the box automatically appears out of thin air. And this fantasy isekai world has never had Japanese cooking. So Mukoda shares and illustrates what's it like to survive in a world where there is none of the same food that he is used to. But it does get hilarious when the characters. When the characters in his world, in the isekai world, taste Japanese cooking and their HP level maxes out. So
I wanted to say, just from these images, I really like the art style. And so is it a sort of episodic story, or is there, I mean, where you sort of enjoy each scene for what it is, but there's not a like an ultimate goal that he's trying to achieve?
He's not trying to achieve something. It's just going. He just got himself put onto a path of being a hero, but then
Yeah.
he decided to become a merchant
Mm-hmm.
because he had to because suddenly he discovered that he became a cook
Yes.
to his familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode this panel is from when they actually had spaghetti and pasta. You know, spaghetti meatballs.
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I do know.
So this is after his wolf actually ends up eat like coming up and saying, ah, that's so cool. And the next one it's like she ends up cracking up. But outside of that, he's an ordinary businessman.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so but next.
Okay.
Okay. So this is Oishimbo, also known as the Gourmet. There is 111 volume series in this Benmont of a series. It's
When does
100.
it when does it
It
start? When was it start getting published? When did it start getting published?
it probably started publishing in the 80s, I
Oh my
think, or
goodness.
early 90s or 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, I was looking at, there's this whole cast of characters in the
Mhm.
right top frame, and the style reminds me a lot of earlier manga.
And
Um,
so it actually is because of how much volumes there is, right?
mhm,
Um, Viz only released 5 books based on the theme of the food.
mhm. In other words,
And
they gathered separate uh, pieces from the ongoing full series, and they
mhm,
wedded them together.
they wed it together. And then, so that's why sometimes when you read the English books, right, it doesn't sound like it's in order, linear
Yeah.
order, right? But it has gotten put on indefinite hiatus after the
Mm.
author spoke out against Fukushima Daiichi on health concerns about consuming eats food from fish from the where
Wow. So he's
the
kind of
North.
progressive then.
Hmm. So
And
you could actually see the episodes of this series on YouTube if you wanted to. They
oh,
actually have there's an anime series, but it's on YouTube right now.
is there a live action too, or just anime?
I believe there was a live action because a lot of Oishinbo is considered to be an older series.
Mm-hmm.
It is not really. You could talk to people about it, but then people are like saying, "Oh, it's part of the." It's like Dilbert. Do you
Oh
want to go
yeah.
back and read old issues of Dilbert? Do you ask if Dilbert has a or Blondie? Do they have live actions or something like that?
I think there was a
Um,
live action of Blondie actually,
Oh,
but
but the thing is that mhm. But this is mostly about the eating adventures of Shiro Yamaoka, who is a journalist.
he's the guy with the shiny black hair here, right, in the left hand.
So when I mentioned about Drops of God, right, was because both Vertical and Viz at that point had taken the English localization translations where they actually pulled out not the entire series because there was way too much books to be published and that was way too much expense. That was it's too expensive.
Yeah,
So Drops of God had the same exact situation where the English publisher had to select and choose specific chapters, not
yeah.
translate everything because
They just
it,
couldn't. But
it
the
proves
thing
that.
about Drops of God is that it does have a bit more of a story arc where um, I think the main character is competing with somebody who turns out to be is it his half brother or something? I don't know. He's competing with somebody else for his father, who's a celebrated connoisseur of wine,
Mm-hmm.
for his wealth and legacy, kind of his name, after his father dies.
Shimbo is also the same thing.
Oh,
The male
really?
lead is competing against his father, who is a culinary eater.
Aha. the Craig
But
Levan of his day.
but yeah, but
Yeah.
this is all whatever was published in English. So.
Yeah.
So next.
Okay.
Okay. Wakakozake. You could talk about it and I could
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah. So Wakakozake is the story of Wakako, a quote unquote office lady, an administrative assistant type person who de-stresses after each day by going out on her own for drinks, hence the sake, which would be sake by itself. And not only does she really enjoy the drinks, but she also loves pairing them with some of the bar food that's out there, ranging from preparations of it looks like tamago yaki there to fish to all sorts of things. I feel like ginkgo nuts might have been there at some point.
I actually I actually took a screenshot of the table of contents for
Yeah.
Wakakozake, but I couldn't put it myself to shove it into the PowerPoint. Otherwise,
Yes.
I'd be sitting there and drooling over what the menu is talking about.
But one of the fun things about Wakako is the very simple drawing of her face and the eyes. I mean, she just sort of has an almost Zen quality as she walks along. Although she does have her very strong opinions about how food should be prepared. So if she overhears somebody making the wrong choice, she'll recoil from that.
So there's only one volume in manga. There is 2 anime seasons, and then there's 3 live action seasons.
Yeah. And she has a typical reaction, which you see in the right hand large image of her, which is psha. That's what. Oh no, that says pshu in this case, but she also says psha.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just the sound of utter enjoyment and satisfaction.
Yes. So I put Jiro Taniguchi's Solitary Gourmet because that is very similar-esque. Not really, but similar-esque. But there's a huge Wakakozake and both Solitary Gourmet, as I think I've said before, have very rich inner monologues of the characters. They talk about what eating certain types of food would evoke their love.
Yeah. But Solitary Gourmet is a bit more, it's not as humorous, is it? I haven't read it.
It's not as humorous. No, it's not. It's there is an ongoing live action with a Solitary Gourmet, but Solitary Gourmet is only one book. And there was, J-Manga did publish this in the past as a digital e-manga, but Fanfare Pornpov is actually trying to bring out the book in publication.
Oh, I hope it does.
You know about Fanfare Pornpov, right? It's a
European
publisher. So because ever since Jiro Taniguchi passed a couple of years ago, the Fanfare turned out to be the English publisher to go to if you ever wanted to get any of Jiro Taniguchi's works.
Yeah. I wanted to mention something about Wakakozake, which I think you may have said is also true of a Solitary Gourmet, and that's that Wakakozake actually features real eateries. You can particularly see this in both the anime and the live action. So they kind of do a little, and I think the anime for Wakakozake is like 5 minutes. And I think at least a couple of minutes of that is introducing you to the actual restaurant where things take place.
It's on Crunchyroll. Wakakozake's live action and the anime is on Crunchyroll, but I don't believe they have all their live action. I think it's only the first 2 seasons of the live action.
But still a lot of fun. And did you say that Solitary Gourmet also features real eateries?
It does. The live action is ongoing. I think it's been ongoing, but it's not in English.
Alas.
It's one of the series that I want to see translated in English. It's kind of like Midnight Shokudo, Shinya Shokudo. I don't know if you know that one, the Midnight Diner thing.
Yeah, you had mentioned that to me. It sounds really good.
Netflix has. there's a manga for that one also, and
Yeah.
the manga art style is very similar to Wakakozake. Very.
Do you want to say a little bit about this other character that's in the right-hand corner?
Oh yeah, it's Agaretsuko. It is you know how oftentimes Wakakozake pretty much says he does she shows very similar to like stoic, kind of like an OL kind of a Japanese look.
Yeah.
But somehow I always think she could be like what Agaretsuko, which is a Sanrio character.
Yeah.
It's also on Netflix. That, you know, the whole grunge kind of a thing. It shows that there are definite different sides.
Is it sort of like tsundere or yandere, where there's two faces or sort of like gap between one aspect of the character and another aspect of the character?
I think so too. However, mostly it was because I just wanted to say what exactly an OL is. Office lady?
Yes.
So the office lady culture.
Yes. Okay.
So next. Okay. This is Sweetness and Lightning. There is Free Library does not own this one also, by the way. This manga is published in English by Kodansha. It's already completed in 12 volumes. It is about Kohei. He's a math teacher, but he's also a widow. So his wife had passed away, and he became a single father to Tsumuki, who is his 5-year-old daughter. He actually doesn't know how to cook, so he tries to prepare food for him, right? For her and himself, for themselves, yeah. But then he ends up starting to cook with Kotori, who is a student from his school. But
a high school student, right?
High school student, yep. That is over here. If you see in the lower right-hand corner side. So this is a story of an unlikely relationship. There is an anime and manga. There is there is no of course this is very much slice of life Japanese anime series. For it is the reason Kotori ends up going to prepare meals with Kohei because her mother, she is a daughter of a famous cook. Her mother became a cooking celebrity. So her mother left the restaurant, and so she has the closed restaurant. So then they have a kitchen to prepare food in, right? But Kotori is also very scared of cutting. She has a thing against about seeing blood. So she has to find someone to help her cook because otherwise she keeps on dreaming about food. By the way, and Komugi is also the same thing also. So. But this is a very sweet series.
Yeah, the mangaka I think has done some BL as well. The name is familiar, and it looked like a fun art style.
So next.
Aha! Speaking of the BL connection and other stuff.
What Did You Eat Yesterday by Fumi Yoshinaga. There is a live action drama and film with this series, with this title, right?
Yes.
So What Did You Eat Yesterday is about middle-aged in the closet lawyer who is Shiro. He lives with his hairdresser boyfriend Kenji. So every single episode, every single chapter in the ongoing 15 plus volume series, he's going to be spending time preparing a meal. And so every single chapter there is a recipe so that you can actually try and prepare a Japanese style home cooked meal. I have yet. This is ongoing. I'm like every single time I see it, I will freaking buy it, pre-order it to the point where it's like I'm smashing on the button to pre-order it.
Another volume.
So Fumio Shinaga in the past has definitely prepared a lot of other titles, like food type eating titles, like Not Love But Delicious Foods or Antique Bakery.
Yes, and that's what I was waving in the window. I got my order wrong. So here it is. And an example of one of the yummy, delicious dishes.
And bakery thing.
Yeah, and there's a live action as well as the anime, but the plot is somewhat different, and there's BL is not the center of Antique Bakery, though it's an aspect of it. And but the live action kind of does away with the BL by the end of the story, which is weird.
What Did You Yesterday is about the life of two gay men. Shido is just in the closet because he's not talking about his homosexuality with his coworkers. They don't know that he's gay, but his friends and his lover, they do know that he's gay. His parents does not know that he's gay. Actually, no, they do explore that later. That in the series that he is. They do explore in the series that Shido does reconcile with the fact that his parents will not be getting any grandkids from him. So the English series talks about his everyday living, right? There is, if Fumi Yoshinaga has done doujinshis in the past, right? There is actually a doujin of Shiro and Kenji prior to them becoming a couple. So that is more BL-ish title-esque. Well, Not Love and Delicious Food is actually a one-shot volume that Fumi Yoshinaga does that talks about a reporter going to try out different foods and review real life locations. And let's see. It is one of those things. Anyhow, Sarah, are you back yet?
Yes, sorry, I was interrupted briefly.
No worries. I just tried to stretch up, but I'm ready to move on. Are you ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. This is also another series that's not published, not owned by Free Library. It is so it's in English by Yen Press for the manga and Seven Seas for the light novels. So this is an ongoing series about a restaurant known as Nekoya.
See the kitty in the corner.
Western style restaurant, Monday through Fridays, right? It's known as Nekoya. But every Saturday, Nekoya has another name, Restaurant to Another World. Because every Saturday, entrances to this restaurant appears in multiple different locations, and different different like fantasy customers would become regular diners.
And it seems like there's this green critter is one of them.
And
I'm sorry,
yes, and so they actually end up becoming very similar. There's going to be referred to any of the regular diners, right? Like our library regulars, right?
Yeah.
They would become referred to by the food that they continually eat. Like,
omurice-san.
Omurice-san, okay. Omurice, and then there's also like katsu sando and all that.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a second season for the series.
Oh, it sounds like fun. Your description of how they have these portals reminds me a little bit of Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah.
But instead of going out, they're coming in, which is interesting.
Yeah. So next.
Okay. Yeah.
So
speaking of another world.
Yes, both Isekai, Izakaya, Nobu, and the Restaurant to Another World, they're very similar in the fact that they're both Isekai, where their customers are considered to be otherworld citizens, but the difference between this one, other than the food, is different, right? Is the fact that Nobu is actually the front of their restaurant actually opens to a fantasy medieval world. So instead of like what Restaurant to Another World is one day a week, Nobu is like all throughout the time of their opening.
So if Yeah, so if somebody knocked on the door and came in from our world, they would immediately be in that other world.
No. The back door is to contemporary Japan.
Oh, the back door.
The front door is to the medieval world. So this is the difference is that there is way more fleshed. I mean, I would think of this as ideal. I mean, everyone, you get to see a slice of medieval living, minus all the plagues, minus all the death, minus all the cleanliness situations.
Yeah.
They do talk about that.
Oppression.
But the thing is that oppression, all that stuff. So, but they do have this is ongoing because the 8th volume of this series is coming out later this year in English. And I personally love it. The anime itself is split up into one episode. Half of the episode is the anime itself, and the other half is a Japanese chef actually talking about how to cook something. Or there is another person going to visit a real life bar that talks about a type of food that is featured in that episode.
Mm-hmm. And very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So the food is modern worldy.
Food.
Yes.
It's modern worldy and it's bar. Anything that could go well with drinking. Drinking with beer, like nama, what's on tap? I think that's what they call it, what's on tap.
And so I guess at some point we'll see Wakako coming in here.
I would hope so. If they do that.
Crossover, yay!
Crossover fan fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what here.
Okay, so I wanted to include this one because it has a special feature on traditional sweets. And this is like an older teens adult romance shoujo type title. And so the young lady on the front is an artisanal sweets maker. She lost her mother early in life because her mother was framed for murder of her employer, who was part of a major confectionery house. But so the main character goes on in her mother's footsteps to become a traditional sweets maker. And though she struggled for quite a while because of her lack of family connections. But then unexpectedly, she runs into her childhood friend, her ex-childhood friend, who was the one who witnessed the murder, the alleged murder by her mother. So this doesn't sound like a recipe for romance, but in fact, he abruptly proposes marriage to her for his own unknown reasons. And at the same time, she's trying to sort out the reasoning behind the true facts behind how her mother was framed. So I have just read the first volume, but I'm hooked. And it is ongoing in Japanese at 15 volumes, just 6 in the US, in English rather. And unfortunately, the Free Library does not own this. I suspect at least the earlier volumes can be obtained through interlibrary loan.
Like a lot of the other, by the way, all the other ones I've also mentioned, they are most likely digital e-manga. They're all electronically released at this point.
At least in English.
At least in English, yeah. And do you know if there's any way to get interlibrary loan with e-manga?
No, that's a little tricky. I really wish there was, because there's so much good content. Although, I mean, I think that's true of some of the e-manga that we have through Overdrive or whatever. That, so to that extent you can, but I think certain publishers are not accessible that way. So that is the final slide.
However, we do have others. Weren't we going to talk about other titles? Like
what I wanted to move on to is the importance of food and drink throughout manga and anime. Very often I mean, there'll be like traditional events such as the school festival, or the seasonal festivals, Matsuri, and which are always an opportunity in shoujo for people to go on their first date or whatever. And you definitely see people always eating food there, whether it's takoyaki or I think uh, for New Year's it's amazake that they drink, or for takoyaki, maybe dango. I think I've seen dango. Uh, uh, what is the noodle thing? I'm suddenly blanking on the noodle.
Soba, there's udon, there's
Yeah.
the whole if you do it, it's not soba, it's the whole bamboo sliding.
Oh yeah,
What is
the
that called?
somen.
The somen, yep, somen.
Yeah,
And
and yes, so many different options, with some
options.
especially showing up, and even cotton candy. I just read a story where cotton candy was a romantic thing, where the love interest goes in for a bite of the cotton candy that the other person is holding. Speaking of which, yeah, sharing a food or drink can be some sort of romance, where especially it can be something where another character who's jealous is thinking of the person he's jealous about uh, eating with somebody else, and the somebody else will offer things on a chopstick or a spoon to that person and say and the other one will gobble it up. So yeah,
indirect kisses.
Well, yeah, and indirect kisses, where people will, if you share a drink with somebody, it's as if you are kissing them. I wanted to mention a few that really, although they're not just about food, they really have a significant food element. One of them is Silver Spoon, which is by the mangaka who brought us Full Metal Alchemist. But Silver Spoon is the story of a teen who decides to sort of avoid the rat race of usual of prep schools and whatnot in Tokyo, and instead enrolls in an agricultural school in Hokkaido. But being that it is an agricultural school, a lot of what they wind up producing is food, and so we get to see into the cheese making process, the hog raising and slaughtering process. He innovates and creates a pizza oven from scratch. There's a lot of things, and
is that done? Because I know Free Library has.
Yes, it is done. It's done.
It's done in 14 volumes.
No. This is not the last volume. I think it's 15 or 16 is the last volume.
Okay then. Pre-COVID, I think. Well, I was planning to borrow Ginnosaji from the library.
Yeah, someday you can borrow it from me too.
Kensington has it the entire series.
No, well, we have a lot of it, but I meant you can borrow it with my personal copy. Okay. Another Bride's story. Oops, I have that is the right story. Is about this basically life on the Silk Road, either at the end of the 19th century or early 20th century. And so you see a lot of different aspects of culture there. But one important aspect is that some people make their living selling bread. And so this young girl is the heir to her family's bread making business. But she has a lot of complicated feelings about that, and about the fact that they want to arrange a marriage for her. So she's a fun character in this series. But so yeah.
Is that, by the way?
What's that?
What volume is that?
This one is volume 9, but she shows up in earlier volumes.
What Bride's story is that it had a really nice publication treatment from Yen Press, because every single one is practically hardcover bound. I think that's a really nice treatment from
It
Yatra.
really is
But I think
beautiful.
the story became a very it was hard for me to follow as a series.
There's a lot of developments, and it sort of pursues different storylines. So yeah, so the people you expect to be seeing all through the series don't always make an appearance.
Yeah.
Then there's
compared to her last series, Victoria Emma.
Yeah. I also want to mention that food can often be the way to somebody's heart in shoujo manga, and even in shonen manga, it's kind of a symbolic thing about the relationship between older and younger brothers or something, where in the case of Whistle, the older brother makes this huge rice ball with squares of nori over it to look like a soccer ball.
And oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I love that part. And I think in the case of Fruits Basket, one of the major things they start relying on her for is food. When she first enters their kitchen, it's like a disaster area of monumental proportions, and so yeah, so the otherwise very elegant Yuki is like, I don't know how to cook anything.
I remember that.
Yeah, he can raise vegetables, but he cannot cook. Worth a darn.
So it reminds me of when you talk about the Whistle, that show, the onigiri scene, right? It reminds me of whenever I think about other sports anime where all the assistants, like the female, right? Like in Kuroko's Basket, right?
Yeah.
The manager is supposed to be making these sports drinks, sports like refreshing kind of.
Yes.
Like a lemon. There's a lemon honey kind of concoction.
Exactly. That shows up in Hanakimi, and it really impressed me because it was the first time I'd heard of it.
Yeah, and the thing is that the problem is in the sports anime, though, they can't cook to save their lives. They can't cook to save their lives, so it's like a doom kind of. It turns into a comedy trope. Yeah. It turns into a comedy thing.
Although in Big Wind-Up, the two members of the pitcher-catcher pair are assigned on kitchen duty for at least one day of the training camp, and so the catcher is kind of gruff and not always good at conveying his feelings, and whereas the pitcher is very shy and stammers always. But I think it winds up that the pitcher has more cooking experience than the catcher, so it kind of changes the dynamic a little bit. And you'll also see like field trips or camping expeditions that a class may take, where they have to rough it and cook for themselves there. If I'm recalling correctly, Silver Diamond's main character, who thinks he's a regular human to begin with, is a really good cook, but then it goes on to a lot of other stuff, and that's washed away. Oh, well, speaking of which, I'm really bummed that Silver Diamond got, the manga continued for a while in Japanese without, this was when Tokyo Pop basically dropped dead for a little while. And so they probably lost the license, which is really sad.
Well, that's the issue. That's, never mind. You don't want to hear me talk.
No, you have a lot to say about Tokyo Pop. Not today. Okay, not today. So yes, Earth Girl Arjuna is an amazing 4-volume 4-DVD anime. And for its time, I think the effects were pretty good. I think they look awkward, but one of the scenes that I found most impactful was she's basically a regular girl who gets sucked into this effort to save the earth from destruction, and she's not always really enthusiastic about taking this role. And so at one point she just goes in for but her senses are awakened, and she has innate ability she didn't know about. So she goes into a American burger joint, and she buys a burger and she bites into it, and immediately she sees the whole vision of factory farming and how the animals are being maltreated, and the poison going into the water and the smoke rising up, and it's really a shocking thing to see. And of course it makes her sick to her stomach as she's witnessing this all from one bite of burger
Meat.
Yeah. So but yeah, definitely recommend this if you can find it to watch.
I believe Earth Girl Arjuna is still in print, I think. Maybe.
The DVD, I don't think it was a manga ever.
Well, it wasn't a manga, but I think the DVD is still in print.
Oh, that would be good if so. And
Sure.
the soundtrack is great, but that's a tale for another story.
Mhm.
A tale for another time. We are about up at the hour. Any
Yes,
last
yeah.
words you have for food? Oh, I wanted to mention
know.
seasonal foods, like another major shoujo trait, or any like any slice of life trope, is the going for hanami, going to see the cherry blossoms. And so you bring bentos for that and share them around in a group or with the next blanket over. Also, you'll see, so sakura mochi is something that people eat at that time, a traditional sweet which has, I believe, either a cherry leaf or a cherry blossom involved.
Cherry blossom itself as a tea, or when you're drinking, it's very salty.
Yeah. Ooh. So anyway, oh, and don't forget traditions even with every meal, such as
Itadakimasu,
and gochiso-sama deshita, and you'll also see people holding their chopsticks as they say itadakimasu in anime and manga. I don't know to what extent that still is the case. So
but it's a matter of just caring for your food, and as long as there's going to continue to be food manga, I'm going to probably continue to look at it, because
consume
I
it,
totally
so to speak.
adore seeing anything food related manga.
It is great. So we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us, and matane.